Welcome to the inaugural version of In the Club. Everything you want to know about GCU Club Sports, but we're afraid to ask. I am the Director of Club Sports Information, Jim Howell at Grand Canyon University, and we want to welcome you to this first broadcast. And with me, because there are so many questions with people that are not familiar with club sports, either at GCU or anywhere else, it's time to go back to the basics, and there's no better person to talk to than the director of club sports and the one who has really been able to shape and mold it into what it is now. That is the director of club sports, Dan Nichols. Dan, welcome. Thanks for being here. And I think if we're going to start, we need to truly start at the beginning, that even when you were trying to convince me in my job interview 3 years ago, you were describing what club sports was, and 90 minutes later, I'm not sure that I was any more clear on it than what it was. For somebody that comes up and says, what's club sports all about, Dan, what would you answer?
Intercollegiate athletics not sponsored by the NCAA. That's the best definition I can give, and that pretty much says it all.
For GCU, when people think of athletics, they obviously think of the basketball team and all of the sports that play on the NCAA level and in the WAC, and then you've got intramurals. Where does club sports fit in at GCU?
Highly competitive sports. At the top end, we have things like lacrosse and rugby that really have their own organizations. When you look at rugby and you look, they compete under USA Rugby, they're at the top of the food chain. On the West Coast, the MCLA is the top of the food chain for lacrosse. And, of course, you have hockey, ACHA hockey, as you know, pretty much west of Mississippi. That's really what rules in hockey. So those sports really compete at the highest level. And then we have a lot of other sports, such as ultimate frisbee, that are competitive yet more recreational in the way that they're sort of produced and the way that we look at them. But, we have also take a look at bowling. Bowling competes at the highest level, men's bowling. Women's bowling has an NCAA counterpart, but yet most of the teams are club and they compete against each other. So it's a real mix of what we have. We have to be careful with some of the sports, train them to the utmost degree, have to have weight training. Athletic training has to play a huge part in what we do because they have a high risk of injury. We have a lot of collision sports. So we have to take what we do seriously, provide a great experience, and yet safety's got to be number one, because I really worry about our student athletes, and if they're not trained correctly, going out and playing rugby, lacrosse, hockey, where you're taking checks, getting tackled, all these other kind of things, we have to make sure we're checking the boxes.
Why is club sports so successful at GCU as opposed to a lot of other universities?
Well, I was able to study it and build it slowly, and I credit the executive team in our athletic department and allow to do so. So I was able to take my time, study what other programs are doing across the United States, and then put in what fits for Grand Canyon University. So by doing so, I was able to slowly make the right choices, bring in the right personnel, the right coaches to make it work, and also use the university policies and procedures to go right along and just sort of go with the flow of what the university does. And that enables us to do efficiently and safely.
You've got some sports that have full-time head coaches, some sports that have part-time head coaches, and then you have several of the sports that are student-run. How is that dictated?
Well, as a group, we meet on these kind of things, and we take a look at how we can most effectively run those sports. Some of them students can run, and effective student leaders have stepped up. But some of the more dangerous things, we have to have certified coaches to make sure that the techniques are being taught correctly and that strengthening is provided so that they can not only be successful out on the field, that, it won't result in some injuries or some sort of liability. Listen, we take what we do seriously all the way from the top down, whether it's, like I said, a collision sport or if it's a cappella, say. We're looking to provide coaching in the experience. And look, students aren't going to be interested in these sports if they're not competitive and organized. That's really the difference. Recreation is great, and that fills the need for a lot of students. But when you look back at some experiences you've had in in your youth, you're going to really look at those competitive games that you played in when there was something in line that the school was on, and standings and wins and losses matter. Those experiences are really important for the student athlete, and that's what we're providing.
If I'm a parent and I'm not really sure where I think my child, my prospective college student athlete fits in, what would you suggest to them to find out more about club sports?
Well, really visit our webpage, but I would say take a good look inside into what we're doing, and come out and see a club game. If you come out and watch a lacrosse game at Grand Canyon University or go to a swim meet, you're not going to tell the difference between that and probably an NCAA event. So I would say do the research, take a look at it, and then of course look at our coaches and the quality that we represent. We have highly qualified coaches, some of the best coaches in the nation, some that have Division I experience. We have coaches that have 200 plus wins at the NCAA level. We have guys and ladies that probably are more highly qualified than anywhere you're going to look. So I would say really look at the quality of the program and what it represents. And also, you can match that up to what are your academic needs, and then bring those two together and then have a fantastic overall experience where you're competing mentally and physically on the athletic stage, and yet getting what you want maybe in the program that you want to be in, or at a Christian institution like Grand Canyon University.
As Dan referenced a couple of times, there is a website devoted exclusively to club sports. It's clubsports.gcu.edu. And if you look, every single one of our 36 sports has a page devoted exclusively to it. And the important one is you've got a drop down that gives you how to join, about it, and also frequently asked questions. So not too many excuses to find out more about club sports. Dan Nichols, thanks so much for the time.
Thank you.